We know that the semicolon immediately ensuing is the commencement of a word. And of the 6 characters succeeding the, we are cognizant of no less than 5. Let us set up these characters down, thus by the letters we know them to represent, leaving a space for the unknown. Teeth. Here we're enabled at once to discard the th, as forming no portion of the word commencing with the first T, since by experiment of the entire alphabet for a letter adapted to the vacancy, we perceive that no word can be formed of which this th can be a part. We are thus narrowed into T. And going through the alphabet, if necessary, as before, we arrive at the word tree as the sole possible meaning. We thus gain another letter, R, represented by parentheses, with the word the tree in juxtaposition. Looking beyond these words for a short distance, we again see the combination semicolon 48 and employ it by way of termination to what immediately precedes. We thus have this arrangement. Or substituting the natural letters where known, it reads thus. When the word through makes itself evident at once, but this discovery gives us 3 new letters, O, U, and G. Represented by O, question mark, 3. Looking now narrowly through the cipher for combinations of known characters, we find not very far from the beginning this arrangement. Which plainly is the conclusion of the word degree, and gives us another letter, D, represented by cross. Or T. 4 letters beyond the word degree, we perceive this combination. Translating the known letters, characters, and representing the unknown by dots, as before we read thus. An arrangement immediately suggestive of the word 13, and again furnishing us with 2 new characters, I and N, represented by 6 and asterisks. Referring now to the beginning of the cryptograph, we find the combination translating as before we obtain point good comma, which assures us that the first letter is A, and that the first two words are A, good. It is now time to rearrange our key as far as discovered in a tabular form. To avoid confusion, it will stand thus. We have therefore no less than 11 of the most important characters, letters, represented. And it will be unnecessary to proceed with the details of the solution. I've said enough to convince you that the ciphers of this nature are readily solvable, and to give you some insight into the rationale of their development. But to be assured that the specimen before us appertains to the very simplest species of cryptograph. It now only remains to give you the full translation of the characters upon parchment, as unriddled. Here it is. A good glass in the bishop's hostel in the devil's seat, 41 degrees and 13 minutes northeast, and by north main branch, 7th limb east, side shoot from the left eye of the death's head, a bee line from the tree through the shot 50 feet out. But, said I, the enigma seems still in as bad a condition as ever. How is it possible to extort a meaning from all this jargon about devil saints, death's heads, and bishops' hostels? I confess, replied Legrand, that the matter still wears a serious aspect when regarded with a casual glance. My first endeavor was to divide the sentence into the natural division intended by the cryptographist. You mean to punctuate it? Something of that kind. But how was it possible to effect this? I reflected that it had been in point with the writer to run his words together without division, so as to increase the difficulty of solution. Now, a not over-acute man, in pursuing such an object, would be nearly certain to overdo the matter, when in the course of his composition he arrived at the break in his subject, which would naturally require a pause or a point, and he would be exceedingly apt to run his characters, at this place, more than usual close together. If you will observe the message in the present instance, you will easily detect 5 such cases of unusual crowding. Acting upon his hint, I made the division thus. A good glass in the bishop's hostel in the devil's seat, 41 degrees and 13 minutes, northeast and by north. Main branch, 7th limb east side, shoot out from the left eye of the death's head. A bee line from the tree through the shot 50 feet out. Even this division, said I, leaves me still in the dark. It left me also in the dark, replied Legrand, for a few days, during which I made diligent inquiry in the neighborhood of Sullivan's Island for any building which went by the name of Bishop's Hotel. For of course I dropped the obsolete word hostel. Gaining no information on the subject, I was on the point of extending my sphere of search and proceeding in a more systematic manner, when one morning it entered my head quite suddenly that this Bishop's Hostel might have some reference to an old family, or the name of Bessop, which time out of mind held possession of the ancient manor house, about 4 miles to the northward of the island. I accordingly went over to the plantation and reinstituted my inquiries among the older negroes of the place. At length, one of the most aged of the women said that she had heard of a place such a place as Bessop's Castle, and thought she could guide me to it, but that it was not a castle nor a tavern, but a high rock. I offered to pay her well for her trouble, and after some demur, she consented to accompany me to the spot. We found it without much difficulty, and when dismissing her, I proceeded to examine the place. The castle consisted of an irregular assemblage of cliffs and rocks, one of the latter being quite remarkable for its height as well as for its insulated and artificial appearance. I clambered to its apex, and felt much at a loss at what should be next done. While I was busied in reflection, my eyes fell upon a narrow ledge in the eastern face of the rock, perhaps a yard below the summit upon which I stood. This ledge projected about 18 inches and was not more than a foot wide, while a niche in the cliff just above it gave it a rude resemblance to one of the hollow-backed chairs used by our ancestors. I made no doubt that here was the devil's seat alluded to in the message, and now I seemed to grasp the full secret of the riddle. The good glass, I knew, could have reference to nothing but a telescope, for the word glass is rarely employed in any other sense by seamen. Now here, I once saw, was a telescope to be used, in a definite point of view, admitting no variation from which to use it. Nor did I hesitate to believe that the phrases 41 degrees and 13 minutes and northeast by north were intended as directions for the leveling glass. Greatly excited by these discoveries, I hurried home, procured a telescope, and returned to the rock. I let myself down the ledge, and found that it was impossible to retain a seat upon it except in one particular position. This fact confirmed my preconceived idea. I proceeded to use the glass. Of course, the 41 degrees and 13 minutes could allude to nothing but elevation above the visible horizon, since their horizontal direction was clearly indicated by the words northeast and by north. This latter direction I had once established by means of a pocket compass. Then, pointing the glass as nearly as at an angle of 41 degrees of elevation as I could do it by guess, I moved it cautiously up or down, until my attention was arrested by a circular rift or opening in the foliage of a large tree that overtopped its fellows in the distance. In the center of this rift I perceived a white spot, but could not at first distinguish what it was. Adjusting the focus of the telescope, I again looked, and now made it out to be a human skull. Upon this discovery, I was so sanguine as to consider the enigma solved, for the phrase main branch, seventh limb, east side, could refer only to the position of the skull upon the tree, while shoot from the left eye of the death's head admitted also of but one interpretation in regard to a search for buried treasure. I perceived that the design was to drop a bullet from the left of the eyes of the skull, and that a bee line, or in other words, a straight line, drawn from the nearest point of the trunk to the shot, or the spot where the bullet fell, and thence extended to a distance of 50 feet, which would indicate a definite point. And beneath this point I thought it at least possible that a deposit of value lay concealed.